Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier. 3. Now, obviously, if you've watched the fight, that's probably why you're here. But Conor McGregor lost by technical knockout. Obviously, if you've watched the fight, you'll also know he broke his leg. There was some confusion at the time as to how he broke his leg. I think now it's been isolated and he threw a teep kick which hit the underneath of Poirier's elbow. A few seconds after that, he threw a left hook, and as Poirier threw a left hook, they both missed. Conor stepped back on his leg and his leg just gave away. Now, this was a little bit of a weird one because as it happened, you didn't really know what had happened. In real time, it looked like Dustin had connected with his left hook and dropped Conor. When in actual fact, that wasn't the case. Neither of them connected with anything. Conor just stepped back on his leg and it fell apart. Now, we've obviously seen leg breaks before with Anderson Silva, Corey Hill and Chris Weidman that were all from kicks that were checked. This one was slightly different in the fact that it wasn't checked, it was misplaced. It hit Poirier's elbow as he brought his arm down to protect himself, and there was a delay in when he put pressure on the leg and it ended up breaking. If we talk about the performance itself, Dustin Poirier won that round and he won it convincingly. I do think that when they were on their feet, I guess success was probably shared. Conor was throwing a lot of kicks, and we saw that before in his Nate Diaz rematch, trying to take the wind out of Dustin Poirier's sails and slow him down, taking out that lead leg. Of course, he also wanted to prove a point in the fact that's kind of how he lost the second fight, when he received a lot of calf kicks. So he was throwing a variation of kicks, which of course is always risky. I say risky. You have to make sure you do it properly. Otherwise, you see an Anderson Silva or Corey Hill. Unfortunately, we've seen this in another way. But as far as the fight goes, Dustin Poirier was winning that fight. Conor went for a guillotine, which is completely out of sorts for him. After Dustin came in for a takedown, he didn't get it. Dustin ended up on top, and of course, Dustin Poirier, as we know, being a very, very, very good jiu-jitsu player, took advantage of that and had about 2.5 minutes or so on top, pretty much beating Conor up. Now, I know that Conor was landing elbows, and he landed a few up kicks as well, as that kind of came to an end. So you can kind of make the argument that, yes, Conor was sort of moving position and getting it off his own shots and things like that, but he lost that round and was losing that position. Poirier was complaining about Conor putting his fingers in his gloves. He probably did. I mean, you know, if you can get away with it, what are you going to do? And then, of course, the leg break happened. I've got a few takeaways from it. One, I guess, thinking about how Conor behaved leading up to the fight, that's part of the reason it did 1.8 million pay-per-view buys and was probably the second highest selling pay-per-view in UFC history because of the way he behaved. You look at the way he behaved for the Khabib fight, talking about Khabib's wife, talking about Ali Abdelaziz and calling him a terrorist and all those other sorts of things. All of that stuff, throwing a dolly through a bus, all that stuff is what people like. You know, we're dirty, rotten fight fans, and that's what we like to see. And you will get some people that go, no, it's about the sport, it's about the sport. And I understand that. And those are the purists. But purists don't sell pay-per-views, I'm afraid. And that's just the way it is. If you only had just pure MMA fans buying the pay-per-view every time, you wouldn't get the big numbers. The big numbers come are when your average Joe goes, my God, did you hear what so-and-so said about so-and-so? Did you see what he did? Did you see the press conference where he put... All of that stuff is what adds up to the extra pay-per-view buy. So I don't subscribe to this Conor's gone too far. I think in fight promotion, nothing's too far. You can think back to Mike Tyson when he was going to fight Lennox Lewis and he said to him he's going to eat his children, and other expletives that I won't say in this video. You can go and watch the clip on YouTube. What were they at the press conference before he ran across and started throwing punches at him? I wonder what the pay-per-view numbers did for that. I'd imagine pretty good. So I understand that there are some people that don't like it, but for me, I do like it. I don't think he means he's going to do some of these things. He was telling Dustin at the press conference he was going to kill him in the octagon. No, you're not. Of course you're not. There's a referee in there. There's security guards on the outside. Of course you're not going to do that. it's a figure of speech. You know, how many times do we see at press conferences fighters do this, the old, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to cut your throat thing? We see that all the time. The Undertaker does it before he does a tombstone. It doesn't mean he's going to kill someone. He's selling the fight, he's hyping the fight, and all these people need to just get a little bit more relaxed and kind of think about what's really happening. We're being sold a fight. You saw them at their fight before. They're best friends. They don't really hate each other. They're just building animosity towards a fight. If you see them both in 2 or 3 years' time, they'll be best of mates again. That's not what it's about. It's the fight game. They're selling fights. And we're not supposed to know that they're doing it for us. We're not supposed to know. We're supposed to think that they hate each other. That's the game. If we know, we don't buy the card. And they did 1.8 million pay-per-view buys of what's being reported. So I guess it works. So where does Conor go from here? To be honest, I don't know. I understand the way that he promoted the fight. I don't mind the way that he promoted the fight, but there was an air of desperation to it. And it was almost like everyone was moaning that we didn't have the old Conor back, and then we wanted him back, and he gave it to us, and then we got it and we didn't like it. And I don't know what to tell people. You ask for something, you get it, you don't like it, I can't help you. But it did smack a bit of desperation. It felt like he was trying to force it. I just worry about where he's going to go from here, because you think about the Conor McGregor that we saw back in 2016 when he beat Eddie Alvarez for the lightweight belt, became the 2-division world champion. That was one of the best performances of any UFC athlete that we've seen. And Conor McGregor is a long way from that person. That was 6 years ago. No, I'm lying. That was 5 years ago. That's a long time, especially in a profession like fighting, where you think in that 5 years, he's fought Nate Diaz twice, he's fought Floyd Mayweather, he's fought Khabib, he's fought Cowboy, and he's fought Dustin Poirier. So he's fought 6 times in that time. 6 times in 4 years. For an active fighter, you're supposed to fight 3 times a year. That's the problem. And I guess it showed. You know, you look at the performance against Cowboy. Cowboy's got the same problem. Cowboy's an old boy, and I don't want to take anything away from him. He's had a great career, but Dustin Poirier is not Cowboy Cerrone, and Dustin Poirier has been active and grinding and putting in the work and taking the fights and going into wars with people like Dan Hooker and Eddie Alvarez. You know, fighting Khabib at the top of his game. He's done all of those things to get to this point, and Conor's lost a step. And that's okay, but we need to now stop talking about him in title contention pictures, because he's now got a serious injury. He's going to be away for probably a year before he fights again, if we're being completely honest. You know, it's going to be a year before he fights again, at the very least. And when he comes back, he's going to be another year older. It's going to be another year removed from the Eddie Alvarez fight, and he's going to have to ask himself some serious questions about whether he wants to continue to do this, or does he come back and take the big fights like against Nate, where they're both in a similar path and they're both in a similar spot in their careers. But Conor McGregor will not fight for a UFC title again, as far as I'm concerned. Obviously that remains to be seen, but yeah, I think we've seen the best of Conor, and I kind of hope he realises that too. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think I am.